the entrance to the Persian Gulf and the sea and the Indian Ocean, and the Arabian Sea to the south, and India and China to the east, and China and the Soviet Union to the north, Afghanistan and Iran to the east, the geopolitical significance of Pakistan is self-evident. And it's not a mere coincidence that every architect of American foreign policy since World War II and America's interest in foreign affairs has paid keen attention to the state of Pakistan. That particular location would keep any Pakistani busy creating a foreign policy. It's of extreme interest how a nation behaves in that particular political circumstance. So in terms of the foreign policy of Pakistan, as well as its relations to the United States, the country of Pakistan is of deep interest to all of us. And because of those interesting factors and others, we're delighted to have tonight as our guest the ambassador of Pakistan to discuss the theme of the foreign policy of Pakistan and its relations with the United States. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Ambassador Azim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bird. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure to be here this evening, and I'm indeed very grateful to the Baltimore Council on Foreign Affairs for this very kind invitation that they extended to me. He mentioned this about Omaha and the breakfast meeting where 800 people had turned up so early in the morning. And sometimes I wonder if quantity is everything, or is it quality that matters? I think what I have today in front of me is quality. And to that extent, I'm very proud to be here this evening and to be talking to you. I think gatherings like this and occasions you provide to diplomats to talk to you, they reflect the interest of the American people in the affairs of our region, and is a tribute indeed to the friendship that exists between the United States of America and Pakistan. Now, Pakistan, as you all know, and Dr. Bird just mentioned it, it stands at the crossroads of Central Asia, South Asia, and Middle East. And for countless centuries, diverse civilizations have met and blossomed into new forms on our soil. The land of Pakistan lies across the traditional invasion routes from the northwest, which in fact have shaped the destiny of our country. In fact, not only of our country, but of the whole region. Now, a look at the map will indicate the strategic importance of Pakistan. We live at the edge of an inflamed area. It's an interesting piece of real estate that we own. On our east, we have India, a big power. We have about 1,300 miles of a common frontier, land frontier with India. On our west, we have Afghanistan. Afghanistan, with whom we also have 1,300 to 1,400 miles of a common frontier, land frontier. And then to the north, there is the People's Republic of China. And to the south, we have Iran. And sitting in the middle, of course, is Pakistan, a small country, about 90 million people, and became independent 37 years ago, or just over 37 years ago, on the 14th of August, 1947. What acted as a catalyst to re-energizing the relationship between Pakistan and the United States was the very dramatic and qualitative change in the security environment of our region, which was caused by the induction of troops of a superpower in Afghanistan, which commenced on the 27th of December 1979. We woke up that morning in Pakistan and suddenly found that a state that had acted as a buffer for a very long time in history between South Asia and this big power, this big superpower on the western side, had suddenly disappeared, melted away. And the border of this superpower, which is about 500 miles away physically, on the evening of 26th of December, we suddenly found that the borders had become coterminous on the morning of 27 December 1979. It was, as I said, it was a qualitative change in the geostrategic environment of the region. We had two basic options available, two basic options open to Pakistan. During that fateful week, the last week of December 1979. The first option was to acquiesce to what had happened on our western border, to accept in its totality what was being trumped up as the new reality in the situation, to recognize the government of Babrak Karmal, who practically came riding on Soviet tanks into the capital city of Afghanistan, Kabul, and to accept the change that had taken place. The second option was not to accept what was being trumped up as the new reality, but to stand up for one's principles, not to recognize the government that had been imposed in Kabul, and come what may, oppose this naked aggression that had converted an independent, non-aligned Islamic country into a vassal state. We knew the pitfalls of adopting the second course, but a very conscious decision was taken. A deliberate decision was taken during, as I said, that fateful week, the last week of December 79. And the decision was that come what may, we will stand for our principles. If we buckle under the pressure now, then who knows whose turn will come next. It may be Pakistan next, it may be some other country next year. So somebody somewhere has to draw the line. Somebody somewhere has to stand up for the principles. Somebody somewhere has to say, come what may, whatever suffering may be inflicted on us as a result of this, we will accept that. And that was our decision. Now, as time progressed, that carefully considered basic strategic decision that we took was supported around the capitals of the world. Almost immediately in January 1980, an emergency meeting of the Organization of the Islamic Countries, which has about 42 member states, was held in Islamabad. And they almost unanimously supported the position of Pakistan. And all these 42 Islamic countries resolved not to recognize the new government that had been imposed in Kabul. Then after that, the matter was taken up to the United Nations, to the General Assembly. And since the fall of 1980, every year the United Nations General Assembly has endorsed the position of Pakistan. Last year we had about 116 votes cast out of, I think, a total membership of 152 in favor of the position that had been taken by Pakistan. This year again, I think in the middle of November, the resolution supporting the position of Pakistan will be taken up again in the General Assembly of the United Nations, and we hope to do one better as far as these figures of the countries is concerned, and perhaps raise the ante. Then later on, a meeting of the foreign ministers of the non-aligned movement of the world was held in New Delhi, where similarly a resolution was passed asking for the withdrawal of all foreign forces from the soil of Afghanistan, and the restoration of Afghanistan as a true member of the non-aligned movement. Later, a summit also of the Islamic countries was held, who similarly endorsed this position. So we've had support around the world, and support we will continue to have. As far as I mentioned, that the revival of the relationship, in fact, started with this new change that had taken place in our region, and I think it was in the month of February 1980, about a month after the occupation of Afghanistan, that President Carter sent his National Security Advisor, Dr. Brzezinski, to Pakistan with a team of senior members of the administration to confirm the support of the Carter administration to the position of Pakistan, and also to see what assistance could be provided by United States at this moment to Pakistan. So there were lots of discussions, lots of goings and comings between Islamabad and Washington, which actually started during the period of President Carter. And of course, towards the end of the year, before we had come to any final conclusion on the quota, quantum, or philosophy of the aid that was being offered, President Reagan won the elections, and his administration assumed the reins of responsibility for the free world in January 1981. Now, with President Reagan's coming, the attention was again focused on Pakistan, and there were serious negotiations. And by September 1981, there was an agreement between the two countries, that is to say, United States and Pakistan, agreement to the tune of to provide assistance to Pakistan to the tune of $3.2 billion, which was to be spread over a 6-year period, and this was to commence with the fiscal year 1983. Half of this was for military assistance or for buying military equipment, and the other half of this amount, which the total is $3.2 billion, was for as economic assistance to Pakistan. So the reason why I mentioned that it started with the visit of Dr. Brzezinski, that the shaping of the relationship, unfortunately in some circles it is being understood as purely as it has happened with the Reagan administration. No, it was the aid package was the result of a bipartisan effort, because as I just mentioned, the efforts to assist Pakistan started during the days of the Carter administration, and they reached their fusion or final agreement during the days of the first year of the Reagan administration. Now I'll come back to our bilateral relations in a few minutes, but in the meantime I want to just revert back to Afghanistan once again, and it's all very well to say that everybody is coming to help Pakistan, to help the people of Afghanistan. As to what has happened during this period, I'm sure you all know that in December this year, the Afghan resistance would have completed about 5 years. It started in 79, and this is the end of 84. It is more than the total involvement of the Soviet Union in the Second World War, and that's a point which one should never forget. It is more in length than the involvement of Soviet Union in the Second World War. What have they got to show for this over a period of 5 years? They control Kabul, the capital of the country. They control other major cities like Jalalabad, like Kandahar, like Herat. They control the roads that link these major cities. Outside that, they control nothing. Outside the major cities, outside these main arteries linking these roads, and they control the arteries, remember, only during daytime. not after it gets dark, by constant patrolling on the road and through helicopters. Beyond that, they have nothing to show. And what to talk of Kabul, the capital of the country. 2 weeks ago, there is a fort in the heart of Kabul called the Bala Hisar Fort. It's an ancient fort. It's a very historic fort. It's been there from the days of the Amirs who ruled over Afghanistan. And some say it even goes back to the Mughal period. The Bala Hisar Fort is the headquarters of the occupying forces and of the Afghan army. 2 weeks ago at night, that fort was attacked with light machine guns, with small arms, rifles, and with mortars. This happened in the heart of Kabul. So that is what this mighty army, the biggest the most, at least they claim to be the mightiest army today, and equipped with the most sophisticated weaponry that Red Army claims to have got to show over a period of 5 years of incessant, relentless hostilities. What has happened to Pakistan in between? We have today in Pakistan a total of 3 million refugees who have fled their country. Up to the time of the foreign occupation of Afghanistan, we had 400,000 people. Because as you know, before the troops arrived, there were two communist governments in Kabul. One was led by Mr. Tarakai, who had removed President Daoud, and then he in turn was shot and killed, and Mr. Hafizullah Amin took over in Kabul, and then of course he in turn was shot and killed by Mr. Babrak Kamal. Those two regimes earlier on had also resulted in the flow of refugees into Pakistan. So we had about 400,000 people. We were looking after them entirely on our own, with our own resources. But after this occupation, then the flow of refugees increased till it became a torrent. In 1 year, the first 1 year, it was practically at the rate of 80,000 a month, leaving their homes and huts and seeking shelter and succor and relief in the neighboring country of Pakistan. So by January of 1981, we had about 1.5 million in Pakistan, and we now have close to 3 million people. Another 1 million are in Iran. They went the other way. Those who were closer to Iran, places like Herat, and they were closer physically, so they moved there. And some more, a few thousand, I think the more well-to-do, the more affluent, who had the means, are spread all over the world, including Europe and including United States of America. In fact, we were just talking about Omaha. I went to the university to attend a seminar there last week, and I came across nearly 300 Afghan refugees who were attending that conference and who had sought refuge in United States. But they were the educated class, the well-to-do people. They had been ministers in the various governments at Kabul and had the means to travel as far as the United States. So there are 3 million people in Pakistan. A lot of people ask me as to what if the total population is only 15 million? So out of 15 million, you already have 4 million outside, and another few thousand spread all over the world. So 1 in every 5 Afghanis is out of the country, and he's a refugee today. As I said, people ask me, why did you welcome them? Why did you ask them? So we say it is, the borders between Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are porous borders. They are open borders. People of the same tribes live on either side of the border. For centuries, they've had the right of free access, of free movement across the borders. The kith and kin, the comings and goings are frequent. And it's, as I said, it's nearly 1,300 miles long. There are only 2 well-known, internationally accepted crossing places. One is the Khyber Pass, about whom I think everybody knows. and because it's famous in history as one of the main passes through which the invaders came into South Asia. And normally every time somebody talks of Alexander the Great and say, oh yes, it was Khyber Pass he came through to conquer the South Asian subcontinent. So one is of course the Khyber Pass. And the other internationally renowned place is in the province of Balochistan at a place called Chaman. And at Chaman you can cross over. There are facilities available for a proper authorized movement across the border. But beyond that, there is just no system, no means to be able to check any movement. So the refugees came throughout the length of the border that exists between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Inside Pakistan, yes, well, the point I was trying to make is that what was the motivation? What was the motivation which made Pakistan accept these people? And I think I take pains to explain the culture and tradition of our region, mainly rooted in our faith. And those who are familiar with Islam know that it goes back to the days when our Prophet Muhammad had to leave Mecca due to many circumstances and had to migrate to Medina with his followers. And the people of Medina set the first example in the history of Islam by welcoming them with open arms and vacating their own homes to make the people who had migrated due to oppression comfortable. So our tradition is rooted in this history of Islam, and that is what a lot of people do not know, and I find it my duty to mention that. That is why you find today that in Pakistan, even last night somebody was telling me, an American scholar who'd recently visited some border areas, that there are houses which only have 2 rooms. In fact, a Pakistani living in a village who has 2 rooms is a lucky man. We are not a rich country. We are a developing country. And he's vacated 1 room to give to the refugees from Afghanistan and collected his kith and kin only in 1 room. If he can only afford 4 pieces of bread a day, he's used 2 and given 2 to the other refugees. That has been the spirit which has permeated historically and traditionally through these centuries, and it has become very much a part of our culture and society. So we welcome them with open arms, as a humanitarian duty, as a religious duty, as a conviction of our faith. Then I'm asked, how long will you continue to do so? And I only quote my president, who has said it repeatedly, that out of 15 million people, if the last man in Afghanistan is thrown out, he has to leave his country because of persecution and oppression, that last man from Afghanistan coming out will be received in the same fashion as the very first man was received when he entered Pakistan seeking shelter and help. So that is our approach. We are not bothered, we are not worried at all that Big Park and throughout the entire 15 million people, we will welcome them with open arms. Even if we have to suffer, even if we have to tighten our belt, which we are doing, even if we have to share whatever little kitty that we have, even if we have to share our houses, we will do it for the sake of our brethren. That is part of our culture, and that is my answer to some of these queries and which are often raised. Now, as for what are we doing with the refugees? 3 million people, it's no joke. I was talking this to a friend of mine in the Congress the other day, and he quickly calculated with his computer brain, and he said, Mr. Ambassador, do you know what it means here in our terminology? Comparing the ratio of figures of population? I said, no, Mr. Congressman. He said, it means that 16 million Mexicans have suddenly sought refuge in the United States of America. Now, he said, now imagine what would happen in the United States if 16 million Mexicans suddenly came across the border in a period of a year and said we need help, shelter, food, clothing, jobs and everything. So you can calculate the effects. But in Pakistan, what we are doing is we have distributed them over 320 villages, as we call them, RTVs, refugee tented villages. Each village has a population of about 5,000 to 10,000 people. When they come in, there is a direct aid that is given. They are provided with food, with clothing, with beds, shelter, of course, number one, shelter in the form of tents, and also a per diem per adult member of the family. Then there are indirect forms of assistance, and every RTV, every refugee village now has a basic primary school for the children. Every RTV now has a basic health unit, and a group of villages has a slightly better hospital, as good as we can provide under the circumstances. Recently, even in these villages, some industrial classes have been opened up for the women folk to teach them the local handicrafts so that they can augment their income and their per diem by learning and becoming useful members of the society as they are located today. Now, it's not 300 people only. All of them brought their cattle stock also. They come from the rural areas. So according to a conservative estimate, there are a similar number of cattle heads who have migrated into Pakistan. And they are mainly sheep. Now it's very easy to bring them over. If you go to that area where they are located, there are barren mountains, even water is limited. The potable drinking water is in short supply. Special arrangements have been made to provide clean drinking water to the refugees in their camps. The grazing grounds are limited. So what is happening? That the trees are being cut, the grass is disappearing. And yet, I can say that as a Pakistani with great pride, we know the damage to the ecology. We know the shrinking of the job opportunities that were available to our own people because of all these migrants who have come over. Yet, I can say this with great pride, that over these 4 to 5 years, nobody can quote a single instance of tension or a fight or friction between the locals and the refugees. Yet there are many areas today. There are 26 districts and tehsils spread along the border. There are many areas where the refugee population along the border outstrips that of the local population, because they've come in such large numbers along readily defined routes. But yet there is no friction. Nobody says you go back. Nobody says don't share this grazing ground with my 2 sheep also. They welcome them. Whatever is there, as I said, is also their guests. That is how we treat this. Now, cost. All this costs a lot of money. And for Pakistan, as I said, we are a poor country. We are a developing country. It is costing about $500 million a year. $500 million a year to maintain these refugees in the manner which I have just described. The government and the people of Pakistan meet practically half the cost involved from our own resources. The other half is met by assistance from abroad, and I must gratefully admit that the bulk of the other half comes from the United States. The United States doesn't deal directly with the government of Pakistan on the subject, but the assistance is channeled through the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and through the World Food Programme. It's through these 2 international agencies that assistance is being channeled. In addition to the United States, we have had generous assistance from our Islamic brothers in the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, of course from your countries in Europe like Germany, France and Great Britain. Japan, of course, I must mention, have been very generous. And 2 other countries have been very generous in terms of providing food for the refugees. And they have been Australia and Canada. So good assistance is coming. I wish it could be more, but there is assistance coming, and we welcome whatever comes, but we still feel that basic responsibility still remains. Even if no assistance comes, we will still look after them. As you may have read and heard, this summer particularly, there has been an increase in the level of violence, increase in the number of border violations, and in a period of 30 days, at a place called Tonigram near Parachinar on our border, through border violations and air raids, we had 53 people killed. And those 53 were all, most of them were refugees, because it was a refugee camp that had been attacked, not only by air, but also with trans-border artillery firing. Even inside Afghanistan this year, there has been an increase in the level of violence. You may have also heard that this summer, for the first time, high-level carpet bombing was carried out, particularly in the valley of Panjshir, which is towards the north of Kabul, on the way to the Soviet border. But it did not dilute the determination of the freedom fighters. It did not affect their resolve to continue the struggle till such time as all foreign forces are out of Afghanistan. I think it's when the history of this period comes to be written, the feat of arms being performed by the freedom fighters of Afghanistan would be written in letters of gold. What have they got in any case to fight with? Old dilapidated Lee Enfield rifles, bulk of which are manufactured in their own area, what we call the Dara area, the tribal area, where small mud hovels have these machine lathes and other basic raw instruments with which they hammer and chisel steel into the shape of a rifle. That is what they have. They make their own bullets also. In addition to that, they've been lucky because in 1979 the Afghan army was about 80,000 in strength. Over these 4 to 5 years, there have been major desertions from Afghan army, and today it stands at about 30,000. So the people who have deserted luckily brought their weapons with them also. So that is how there was an element of a new weapon which came to be used by the freedom fighters. And of course they have also attacked the Soviet army and the Afghan army dumps, weapon dumps in Afghanistan, and have been able to seize and capture some weapons which they have brought over, and they have used it. If you go to these camps, you'll find that the majority of the people are women and children, or old men. The younger lot are missing, and they have either stayed behind or they are busy fighting. That is the complexion of the age group in these camps. You go to some of these hospitals, which are, in particularly I'm referring to the International Red Cross Hospital in Peshawar, which is catering to the wounded freedom fighters. And you go there and you find some ghastly scenes. You find people with arms blown off, with legs blown off, with eyes missing, with parts air gone, with half face gone, and it's a symphony in human misery if you walk there, and you walk through the rows of the wounded people. But the smile has not left their face. And if they see there is a foreigner walking through the row of beds containing these wounded people, the only thing that they have on their lips: give us better weapons. We want to go back and fight them. That is the spirit, that is the resolve, and that is why when people ask me, how long will they continue to fight? And I say, they will fight to the last man, to the last Afghan who's alive. Now, 5 years have proved one thing, that militarily there can't be a solution to the problem. This great Red Army has tried. They've tried their best, and now they have adopted tactics which is an irony of history, that if you remember in the Second World War, in the rear areas, areas occupied by the Nazis, wherever there was any rumor or an activity by the partisans who were fighting behind the German lines, the Nazis were very cruel in the sense that they decimated, eliminated, shot, murdered practically whole villages, destroyed the houses, set the crops on fire, and so that it could serve as an example to the others. It is an irony of fate that today the Soviet Union is doing exactly that in Afghanistan, what was happening in their own country during those terrible years of the Second World War. Any village, even remotely rumored to harbor a freedom fighter, they call them bandits incidentally, freedom fighter, that whole village is destroyed, finished. Some of the people are shot. The crops are set on fire, so that that village cannot exist unless, the village can exist if there are means to exist. Food is available. So they destroy the food, then they destroy the houses. So that is an irony of fate. Human beings never learn, irrespective of what they suffer and what they go through. So as I said, there can be no military solution to the problem. So then what is the answer? I think the answer is obviously that attempt should be made to find a political solution. Pakistan has believed in that. We've had, when Mr. Andropov was still alive and we made contacts, he said Russia will withdraw. We will withdraw from Afghanistan. So we took him up on his promise. We said then we must meet and discuss under what conditions you will withdraw, since you have said you are going to withdraw. So a process of meetings was started at Geneva. The meetings were organized by the United Nations, and the special representative of the Secretary General, Mr. Cordovez, was asked to conduct the negotiations between the two main parties concerned, that was Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now, since we do not recognize the government of Babur Kamal, so a very involved system of negotiations was agreed to, and that is that the two delegations sat either in separate buildings or in two ends of the famous the Palace of Nations in Geneva, and Mr. Cordovez would go to one room, discuss, and then shuttle and go to the other room and then rush back again and then go. So this is how the indirect talks were conducted. We've had 3 sessions so far in Geneva: Geneva 1, Geneva 2, and Geneva 3. Geneva 3 was only in June this year. There's been a lot of hard discussion. We still do not see any light at the end of the tunnel. But at the same time, we do not see the tunnel collapsing. We don't see the tunnel collapsing, and that is why we don't want to give up this effort at trying to find a political solution to the problem. The basic points which remain to be determined, of course, we want the foreign forces to withdraw, because it is only then that the refugees will go back to their homes. And we want the 3 million refugees to return to their homes in safety and in honor. And that can only be provided if all foreign forces withdraw from Afghanistan. On the other hand, the view of our opponents is that no, you stop interfering in Afghanistan first, and then the matter of Soviet troops pulling out is a bilateral matter between the government of in Kabul and Moscow. So once we are assured after a year or 2 years that you become good boys and you are behaving, and you're not sending these mujahideen or freedom fighters, and we also are provided guarantees by other international powers that who tell us that yes, we guarantee that there is no interference, then the second phase will start, and that will take its own time. Our approach is that all this should be a part of one comprehensive package with a determined time frame. We cannot isolate an agreement into bits and pieces, that look, we'll do it here now, interference part or refugees part, and then we will meet after 4 years in Geneva again to discuss the second part. Now Now, that is not acceptable to us. So we have to limit this, to reduce the disagreement as much as we can, and we have not given up hope. We want to keep on trying. So the next talks in Geneva will be held now in the month of February to continue from where they left last June. And we want to keep at it. We want to keep at it because we want to take up the Soviet leaders on their word that they want to withdraw from Afghanistan. So I think that is as far as Afghanistan was concerned. I've mentioned about the Geneva talks also. On the other hand, I must say a few words about India, which is our other big neighbor. We are very much, as you know, we've had a tortuous history with India over the last 37 years. We've been to war more than once, and wars have never solved anything. Wars have only left behind in their trail more problems than the wars have solved. So we are sincerely committed to a process of normalization of our relations with India. We are sincerely committed to a stage where we may bury the hatchet for good, to live like good neighbors, to have trust and confidence between ourselves, to have a type of relations which are totally free of all tensions and suspicions, and to make a new beginning, to start a new chapter, to devote our limited resources on both sides. It's true of Pakistan, I know it's equally true of India, to devote our limited resources to improving the quality of life of the common man. That is what we should be aiming at, rather than whatever limited resources we have, we destroy that and we spend that in strife which leads us nowhere. That is our thrust, and we will continue to be faithful to this trust, and we are quite certain that a time will come with India when we will have absolutely tension-free relations. At least that is the desire on our side of the border of every sane and thinking Pakistani. There are so many other problems looming on the horizon, so many other larger threats to the subcontinent as a whole, that it is time we started thinking of the subcontinent as an entity, and see what is good for the people of this subcontinent. That was India. I hope I'm not taking too long, Dr. Bird. I'll just take a few more minutes on the last part. You know, with any country that you have relations, you always have some problems also. And I will not be true if I did not mention that we do have some problems with the United States. And the problem is in the form of perception only. And I do want your indulgence for a couple of minutes so that I can leave some thoughts with you on this very important subject. My job is to promote relations, and I can only promote relations if I identify where things are going off the trail, off the track. So unless I do that, it is not possible for me to make progress, and that is why I wanted to mention this. The first and foremost is this perception in the United States that Pakistan, I've been hearing this, I've been here 3.5 years. Next month, if not next month, month after, or perhaps the month after, is about to explode the atomic bomb. And I've been hearing this since 1981. 81 passed, there was no explosion. 82 passed, nothing happened. All the wisdom, all the saints who had predicted Pakistan's entry into the nuclear club were belied. Then 82 came, 83, sorry. 84 is about to finish, and I have still to hear what we call the dhamaka. You know, dhamaka in my language means the explosion. 84 is also gone by. I want to assure you, with all the emphasis that I can muster, and with all the authority vested in me as the ambassador of my country, that Pakistan is not embarked on a nuclear weapons production program. Pakistan has a research and development program in nuclear technology. We do not deny that. We have it. It is geared for certain peaceful purposes. Our basic problem is energy. 90% of our oil is imported. 60% of our foreign exchange earnings are spent in the earning of oil. Our consumption of electrical energy in Pakistan is 1/10 of the world average. Our consumption of energy in Pakistan compared to your country is 1/50th of your average. So you can imagine where we stand. So it is basically geared to meet our energy requirements. We haven't got good quality coal in our country. You can't use that for oil. Fossil fuels are limited. All our hydro resources have been consumed. What have we been left with? Either to keep on stagnating, slid further back. We missed the Industrial Revolution 200 years ago because we were under a colonial power of Europe. And now that the nuclear revolution has taken place, we have no intentions of missing this, because nuclear technology is the technology of the future. And we have as much the sovereign right to acquire that technology as you have got, as the Soviet Union has got, as Great Britain has got, as France has got. And you cannot deny this to us. And in any case, if we know our history properly, no country in the world has ever monopolized technology for more than a limited period. You can go through history. You can never dam the flow of technology. The flow will always find a way to go around it. So what we require of you is to believe in our intentions. We have not signed the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty for good reasons. We will not sign it because it will not be acceptable to our people unless everybody in our region also signs it. Our people resent being discriminated against. So that is the point I think it is essential to remember. In addition to that, we are applying nuclear technology to medicine, to agriculture, to industry, in all these fields, but certainly not, my dear friends, not in the production of weapons. If we were engaged in the production of weapons, we would not be moving a resolution in the General Assembly every year for the last 8 years that the General Assembly should declare South Asia as a nuclear weapon-free zone. If we were engaged in the production of a weapon, why should we engage concurrently in getting this resolution passed in the General Assembly? Obviously, the two are contradictory in essence and substance. So I think that is a point which should be understood. We have a right to improve the quality of life of our people. We have a right to get them. Even today in my capital city, Islamabad, there is such a shortage of electricity that every afternoon for 1 hour, power is shut off. Every afternoon in the capital city of Islamabad, because we cannot meet the requirements. So you cannot deny us these basic requirements which go to improve the quality of life. We are not condemned by divinity forever to live a standard below the poverty line. I told my friends the other day, after all, we pray 5 times a day. You go to church only on a Sunday, yet you have all the goodies in life. We have nothing. So we are entitled to a share of the goodies also. So please understand this requirement. Our people also, they are human beings. They are human beings. You cannot condemn them forever. We can't constantly be consuming one meal and not knowing where the second meal is going to come from. Not knowing how to provide milk to starving children. How long can you continue? How long can you continue? The only alternative would be a major total social upheaval which may result in the type of totalitarianism which certainly we don't want. So we have to. It's a process of evolution, and we want to expedite this process, and in that we need your help and your understanding. The second point, is the time up? No, sorry. The second point is this process of Islamization in Pakistan. There are lots of wrong interpretation that I hate to use this word, but I want to use it to explain the point, and that is fundamentalism. That everybody in the Islamic world is becoming a fundamentalist. And when you talk of fundamentalism, you immediately associate that in his right pocket must be a slab of TNT, and in his left pocket there must be a hidden gun somewhere, and he's looking for, to gun down so and so and so. It's an incorrect image that is being deliberately created. And unfortunately, Islam is a religion of peace. We have as much respect for the three basic religions, the monotheistic religions, which have emerged from the Middle East. Judaism, we believe in Moses as a prophet. Christianity, we believe in Jesus as a prophet. Muhammad, our own prophet, our only belief is that he is the last in the line. He's the last in the line of the prophets. The beliefs are similar. It's a religion of peace. We are all Ahle Kitab, or members of books. When we refer to the books, are the three holy books of the three basic religions. And it is our belief that a revival of Islam is taking place. Not fundamentalism as you call it, it is revivalism. In a country like Pakistan, which owes its roots to Islam, it is created in the name of religion, because there are only two countries in the world which were created in the name of religion, Israel and Pakistan. So Pakistan is entitled to practice the basic tenets of Islam. Pakistan is entitled to practice the reason for which it was created. If I offer my prayer 5 times a day, it shouldn't make me a terrorist. If I go offer 2.5% of my salary for the needy, for the poor, for the deserving, as laid down in my religion, it doesn't make me a fundamentalist or a terrorist. If I go once in a lifetime to Mecca to perform pilgrimage as it is laid down, does it make me a fundamentalist or what you call a terrorist? No. I think we got the wrong end of the stick, and it is necessary to understand Islam in its proper perspective. It is a religion of peace. We believe in peace. We believe in understanding. Islam means submission. Islam doesn't mean anything else. That's the literal meaning of Islam. And I would beg of you to look at it in a much larger perspective. We have an evolutionary process in Pakistan, not a revolutionary process. We are not chopping hands in Pakistan. We are not blowing up buildings or any such thing. But through a process of persuasion to understand the roots which caused the creation of Pakistan, the faith has to be followed in principle. In Islam, sovereignty rests with Allah, not with the people, which is the Western system. So we believe, and God passes down sovereignty to his people as a sacred trust, which you cannot abuse. With that, Dr. Bhatt, sorry for taking so long, but I take your leave. Your first question is, will the elections be postponed or will they be held? My answer is that they will be held. Our government is committed to the holding of elections. The elections will be completed by 23rd of March 1985. We don't have much time to go. It will be another 5 months and the elections will be completed. The question of political parties, there has been no announcement as yet, because there is a strong school of thought in Pakistan that the elections should be held on a party-less basis, that the individual should be elected on his individual criteria, but not on a party basis. And if I can digress for a minute, in Pakistan we've been trying since 1947 to copy an alien model, the Westminster model of democracy. It has not succeeded. We had 2 elections in Pakistan. The first free election, fair election, was held in 1970. It resulted in the dismemberment of Pakistan. What was then East Pakistan separated, and it is now Bangladesh, with whom we have very good relations, and we have brotherly relations. The second election was held in the month of March 1977. That election was generally regarded as an unfair election. It was lots of polls were rigged, ballot boxes broken, conveyed, transported from one place to the other. As a result, the country stood on the brink of a civil war. for practically 2 months, all productivity in Pakistan ceased. Universities were closed, commerce was at a standstill, nobody was working, people were moving on the streets, and daily clashes with the law enforcing agencies leading to daily loss of life. This time we want to have a system which is indigenous to the roots, to the soil of Pakistan. Any imposed, copied, alien system, we've tried 37 years, it hasn't worked. It has to be a system which is acceptable, which has its roots in Pakistan, and which will work and which will prevent, once and for all, no more martial laws to come into Pakistan. That is our aim and that is our determination. So you have to wait for the full dimension of the system to be explained, based on which the elections will be completed by the date that I had mentioned. The first part, I think, dealt with that historically the Soviet Union has never withdrawn, Russians never withdrawn from any area that they have occupied. Historically, you are right, except I think the solitary instance is their withdrawal from Azerbaijan after the Second World War, which is now part of Iran. Except that they haven't gone back. Our answer to this is that the Soviet leadership have told us that we want to withdraw. So we have no reasons not to disbelieve that unless proved to the contrary. If they say we want to withdraw, so we've entered into negotiations to get into the depth of this statement and to find ways and means where the opposing sides could meet, which could give a practical shape or a practical dimension to this expression, this very noble expression by the Soviet Union that they want to withdraw. So it's a search, and if we can find in the process of search an answer to the problem, then I think I and you should be very happy, because in the process we should have these 3 million Afghan refugees going back home. Now the second part, yes, why doesn't the United States give more help to the refugees, am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. I think that my friend here,
Which will help build the pressure on Russians to negotiate more effectively.
you mean they should be equipped with more weapons or things like that?
If they want
I don't even know if the United States is equipping the freedom fighters with weapons.
with bread and butter, they cannot secure their freedom.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And yet they have survived 5 years. They are being helped. I don't know from where, but they're getting some help, and they are doing very well. And let them continue in this fashion.
Mr. Ambassador, you have absolutely treated us to an eloquent and convincing presentation, and we're grateful to you for sharing not only your time, but your energy and your convictions. It's been an enormous pleasure for us. We thank you.